This podcast is brought to you by Lacrosse All-Stars, growing the game one podcast at a time. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode of the Know the Game podcast. I know it's been quite a while since I recorded one of these, but after this crazy summer, it's time to start picking things back up again. So right now we are in the midst of the World Indoor Championships. Box is starting to get fresh on our minds again. And while I did record this interview way back in January at LaxCon, it was another one of our LaxCon series interviews, it's still hyper relevant, which is something that we always try to do anyway. But it's especially relevant because our guests today are actually having the festival that they mentioned. They mentioned it a little bit towards the end of the interview, the Wooden Stick Festival with Indigenous Values up in Onondaga, New York, right outside of Syracuse. They're going to be on the shores of Onondaga Lake. They're going to be having some actual games with wooden sticks, not exclusively, but mostly, and really celebrate the part of lacrosse that unfortunately gets ignored by way too many people in the lacrosse world. Now, the guests are Clay and Kroy Arnold, and while they may not be household names to most people in the lacrosse world, they've probably been at the same event as you. If you've been to any major event in the Mid-Atlantic up to Northeast, they've been in just about everything. So you'll get a little bit of their background as we start the interview, but I think you'll find what they have to say pretty interesting, so I hope you enjoy this one. We are here, this is the night before LaxCon, but we are here with Clay and Kroy Arnold. Clay and Kroy are two guys I've played with before at the wonderful Lax All-Stars Invitational on the Onondaga Nation. But they are very, very deeply involved in the game, and they're also, running an exhibition here at LaxCon that they're going to have a chance to talk about as well. So, welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, welcome. Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. All right. So the fun thing, this is a podcast, which means that everyone can only hear you, but you guys are not just brothers with the same last name. You also happen to be identical twins on top of that, too.
Yeah, and our voices are very similar, too.
All right, so really quick, just to see if anyone can do it, do a little bit of an ID on the microphone.
So this is Kroy speaking. And this is Clay.
All right, so see if you can pick it up. I'll try to direct things to Kroy if I can, or go things to Clay and try to help you out on the listener side there. But we'll sort of see where things go. But all right, so let's start all the way down to the very basics. Start with Kroy. Who are you? So why are we actually talking to you right now? Do a 60-second intro of who you are, and then we'll bump it over to Clay.
60-second intro. So my name's Kroy Arnold. Played lacrosse since I was 3 years old. Started with the Onondaga Redhawks minor lacrosse, and currently been playing summer ball with the Onondaga Redhawks senior B team. Played at OCC, played at UMass Boston. Currently play with the Peterborough Timbermen in the ALL. And World Traveler. So,
all right. So Clay, you guys are pretty inseparable, I have to admit. So, what are you going to say differently on that one?
Differently, okay. Clay, I play attack. Kroy plays midfield. But we both play defensive transition in the box game. So, Clay is left-handed.
But different sides of the field.
Yes,
or floor.
I'm left-handed and Kroy is right-handed, so that does not help anybody on the floor, on the field or the floor either, though. So,
so you do everything just opposite.
Yeah, I guess the technical term is mirror twins. So.
Yes. All right, so let's just start with the basics. You guys, began your playing with the Redhawks in Onondaga. So What is that like growing up in that sort of lacrosse environment that, you don't typically get in, signing up for just a normal town youth league? We gave Kroy the big intro. So, Clay, why don't you start with this one?
Well, with the growing up and playing with the Onondaga Redhawks, when I grew up, the league's a little different now, but every weekend we'd be traveling up to Canada to play, where most people would be traveling, across the different towns in the county or maybe into different states for tournaments. We would literally be traveling across into a different country to play. You also get a deep and rich history when it comes to the sport. You learn to respect and honor the ancestors in the actual background of the sport itself. You don't just get the parents are involved just as much as they are in any other league, but when it comes to the Onondaga, you get not just the parents, but they are also the leaders of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy that are in the stands watching you play. So,
yeah, and it's one of those situations where the crowd that's looking on, if they have something bad to say about your play, chances are they kind of know what they're talking about too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and actually to that point, what is it like growing up with, that sort of, education around the game? Because I remember back when I was living in Syracuse, I was a ref for a 5th and 6th grade or 4th and 5th grade team, something like that. And
so
one of the
were yelling at you then.
Oh yeah, and it was you had the Camillus group, you had Liverpool, but there's also Lafayette, and you wound up with their goalie in 4th grade is getting warmed up by Sid Hill with a wooden stick. It was a little different than the club team out of Beeville.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So Kroy, why don't you talk about that a little bit too? Because the box game, especially in the Can-Am League, you do have a lot more wooden sticks in play. What is it like growing up around that? Whereas when you're not in that environment, wooden sticks are a little bit more of a novelty. They're not used the same way.
Yeah, so I guess growing up around wooden sticks, obviously I've seen them play with the senior team when I was in the minor organization, but then also I've used wooden sticks when I was young too. So having a wooden stick in my hand, playing even at, I don't even know, 3 years old and go on 7, 8, 10, 12, whatever, I always had a wooden stick, and there's some sort of powerful thing when you have a wooden stick. It's a connection that you can't describe, honestly. Like I couldn't even put it into words right now if I really even tried, but just knowing there's that connection, that's such a powerful connection within the community, within the stick in your hand, playing for that team. It's like I said, you can't put it to words, but it's something really special.
And that actually makes me think the Thompsons are pretty famous about the fact that they were pretty much forced to use wooden sticks, their whole time growing up. Do you think that actually does change the way that you play, whether it's an actual technical thing of learning how to play with a heavier stick that's not offset, all the way to actually approaching the game differently? Like you said, were you actually, when you were say 8 years old, did the actual proverbial weight of the stick actually weigh on you as much as just the physical side of it too?
I have always felt that there is a slight difference with a wooden stick, other than the connection, just the physical, as you said, not being offset or anything like that.
Slightly weighted to one side.
Yeah, slightly weighted, all that other kind of stuff that you could think of. There is a difference, and it does change your style. It changes the way you pass, changes the way you shoot. But it changes the way that players want to play against you too. Yeah, there is a slight intimidation factor at some degree, but and you do get the refs noticing you a little bit more too. But you kind of just grow into that. growing up with that in that kind of setting, in that situation, you expect those things, but then you also, as I said, you change your play and you adapt to make it where you can still score goals, still toe drag, still do all the kind of things that you see Lyle and Miles and Jeremy, Heine, all the Thompsons do. I mean, I've seen Miles score a backhand in a Can-Am game with a wooden stick just as easily as he does in the NLL with a plastic.
So, Clay, I'm actually curious, when did you actually start playing formal field lacrosse? Because obviously the box is a big component of it, but when did you guys actually start moving to that version?
Jeez. I don't know. Probably like 7, 5, 6, 7 around there. I would say.
Yeah, it was probably like 5th or 6th grade.
So it's pretty early on.
Yeah, but actually, I think we actually didn't play with Lafayette in that sense, or with FM where we Fayetteville Manlius where we play our high school ball. I think it was actually we started playing with Jordan Elbridge. Actually, we grew up playing with Reggie Thorpe's son, Gail Thorpe.
Yep.
And
I was going to say, you can't mention Jordan Elbridge without mentioning one of the Thorpes. It has to happen.
So we grew up playing Redhawks with Gail Thorpe, and Reggie was actually our coach when we were younger too. So at times that's how I think, at least that's the youngest I can think of, is start playing with Jordan Elbridge and with Reggie being our coach. So. Oh,
awesome. So when did the switch happen that Kroy became the midi and you became the attack?
So actually, it's kind of a funny story because I actually always in field, playing with box, you always just learn to run a lot. And in fact, our parents always have stories, still tell stories of us playing box when we were 3, just running, and then we would just run on the floor until we were blue in the face and literally be spread eagle on the floor, and our coach would have to come and pick us up off the floor and carry us to the bench. So, the transition from me playing attack and Kroy playing midfield, so I always played midfield up until my first year modified in 7th grade, actually. I played little more midfield, but actually it started my transition more towards attack. And then come freshman year of high school, we didn't have any lefties. And I was always a lefty. And I, being a natural lefty, coach, he came up to me and he was like, "You're going to have to play attack." And me, I was just like, thinking like, okay, what does this mean exactly? And he's like, well, you can still finish and you shoot the ball just as well and handle it just as well as everybody else. You're just going to be playing against deep balls instead of short sticks. So in my mind, like, I was a little upset, but at the same time, then I realized after the first week or so, I was like, I don't have to run as much as I did in midfield.
That was the exact thought that drove me to playing long pole. Was when I signed up to play for the school in 8th grade, I signed up as a midi. I was a soccer player at the time too.
Oh, okay.
And I was just like, I run in the fall. Like,
yeah.
I run in soccer. Like, this is too much running.
I'm
going back to defense. Like, that's
so
traded some CDs for a long pole, and like, no, that's it.
So for me, I just kept playing. I kept. I always played, I still play defensive transition in the box, so that's where I get a lot of my running out that way. And, being an attackman, it just got me to be a better shooter playing box, and my accolades speak for themselves, I think, when it comes to something like that.
So I'm actually curious then. It was a debate I was having with somebody recently. What's your feel on one-handed versus two when you're teaching field?
Teaching field, one-handed versus two. So growing up in Fayetteville Manlius, our coach, Chris Canale, he was a West Genesee guy.
Yep.
So
I know him.
Yes. So, and if your listeners know anything about West Genesee, then they'll know that's like the fundamentals. Like, everything has to be overhand on shots.
You have a 1x1 square next to your ear that every pass has to go to.
But so like it was different, like we have to. Our coach always tried to force us to go with our opposite hands during practices, but in the games, he realized that like you're going to be able to catch with it, and even today, like we'll be able to catch. We can pass with it, we can somewhat shoot with our right hand in our opposite hands, but in the end of the day,
it's not too pretty though.
At the end of the day, we're gonna stay with our dominant hands. So as for teaching wise, we tell them like, you're gonna need to learn it eventually, but learn at your own pace. If you want to, as long as everybody's taught us. Alfish taught us this. Sid Hills taught us this. Everybody said like, as long as you can pass and catch with it, that's enough for you. Yep. So
yeah, and that's kind of like where I've come around on it too, is like you have to be functional with the offhand. Because in the field game it does matter a little bit more in the right situations. Remember there was a thing on Twitter a week or two ago where Randy Mearns retweeted about a video where he switched hands playing for the Nighthawks because he was cutting down the center and the feeder was on the other side. It actually made sense for him to switch hands to catch the pass and then finish. And I forgot who it was, maybe Teddy Jenner or someone like that was joking about like, oh, someone played crease attack. Because there just are situations where, that 2 foot difference of, where your stick is going to be, but still have it in tight, either makes a pass open or not.
Well, like in box, you have that 30-second shot clock. So that, 1 foot by 1 foot window, oh, that's open in box, I'll throw it there. But in field,
it's your fault if you can't catch it.
Yeah, at that point. But
you deal with the loose ball.
Yeah, and honestly, like sometimes me and my brother get annoyed because like we'll have that 1 foot by 1 foot window, and we're like, I'm open, throw me the ball, but they won't throw it there, and then we'll throw it to them when there's that 1 foot by 1 foot window, and even if it's right on their stick and they catch it, then they just get like so surprised that they catch it because they're like, I was still covered.
Well, that's just where you get the compliments of having great chemistry and all that sort of stuff too.
Or you just have like amazing passing ability. You can just fit it in that square.
Absolutely. Of course, if it gets knocked down, then it's a stupid pass and you recovered and, why'd you throw it to me?
Yeah, but, you look at the Thompsons and the way they played at Albany. They probably had a lot of turnovers too, but still they won the Tewaaraton. So
you have to be okay with turnovers.
Yeah. Like, if it hits you in the stick, you should catch that ball. I'm just saying for you listeners out there, if it hits you in the stick, catch the ball.
I completely agree. Like, if I drop a pass and I hit the stick, that's just a terrible feeling. Like that was me not being good at lacrosse, and that just hurts. All right, so talked a little bit about the Redhawks. Getting into the field stuff though, you guys played at OCC. For Chuck Wilbur, who just recently retired, at least from lacrosse. But what is that experience like? Because OCC has just been such a juggernaut. I honestly have no idea what is it like to beat a team 35-1. Like,
can I just make one comment?
Yes. Clay, you can make another comment.
So
I'm just saying.
I just gotta say. So actually, for OCC, we played defensive midfield too. Actually, we didn't even see the offensive side of the field at OCC.
That's just crazy.
Okay, you can answer the rest of the question now, Kroy.
So, as you mentioned, OCC is such a juggernaut under Coach Wilbur, and playing under him, for him, whatever you want to say, it was an experience second to none. I have nothing but complete and total respect for what Wilbur did at OCC. Getting the guys to gel the way they did with us, pulling the recruits out from Canada, from Akwesasne, from Six Nations, Syracuse, Salt Lake City, Utah, California, all over the country. He would just be grabbing these Ohio stellar players, and some still we're really good friends with. Championships make everlasting friendships for sure, and I honestly have Chuck Wilbur to thank for that for sure, and just learning from him. I want to be a coach, and I'm telling you right now, that OCC defense, I'm definitely installing that first thing.
Well, so I think that's a good point, though, is they did get flooded with talent. It's hard when you're getting, Cody Jamieson and, Jeremy and Heine Thompson, playing midfield together, and you're getting Randy Stotts, and you're getting guys like that come in your program. it's gonna be hard not to win some games, but what is it with the actual systems they have in place, the way that they teach the game, that sort of like, what is it with the culture that allows you to actually do it year to year to year? Because it's every single year you lose half your team, and so that's why having the stretch at OCC that they had was so crazy. It was like the old Syracuse Final Four streak of the 22 years. I mean, it's like there wasn't a bad year.
Yeah. No, I would say that for us at OCC, it was that mentality that, not that losing was an option, but it was more of
we didn't expect to not get to the championship. Literally, the goal every year was national championship or bust.
Yeah.
And I guess for us, I mean, there was that one year that OCC lost in the national championship within that 10-year span or so. And, well, there were 2 years. The more recent one that I actually was a part of. We don't need to go into that.
I wasn't on that team, just so you know.
But there, as I mentioned, there was the year that even before that I played that they missed one, and nobody wanted to be that team, even though I was. Nobody wants to be on that team that was known as you lost the national championship,
or worse, to break that streak after.
Yeah.
I mean, we won. What was it? 100. The record's now 110 games or something like that. 108, something like that.
Yeah.
Straight wins.
And I mean, you guys being from the Syracuse area, it's not that different from that year Syracuse Lacrosse missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
So okay, Final Four. Yeah, like everyone can kind of shrug and be like, okay, they're not going to do it every year. Like. This was bound to happen, but then once that first year happened where wait, they missed the playoffs, people freaked out.
Yeah.
We actually knew quite a few players on that team that missed that 2007 year.
Yeah.
And I mean, they don't like to talk about it too much.
Well, and they had ridiculous players too. I mean, that's the crazy part about it.
But I think with being at OCC, what Coach Wilbur did for us as a team was really create a family mentality. That was our slogan, was family.
Yeah.
And
we took that to heart, honestly.
Yeah, so many of us alumni and current players, we take that to heart. There are players, alumni that still come up to us when we wear OCC gear across our chest, and they say, "Oh my God, what year did you play for, Chuck Wilbur? Who were you with?" and all this other kind of stuff. And so there really is that family that, even though the OCC program it's not very old, honestly. I believed it started maybe in the 90s or something like that. And
and I think it was late 90s too.
Yeah.
It was pretty new.
Well, before them, it was Herkimer. Herkimer was the juggernaut of the JUCO.
Oh yeah.
So even Coach Wilbur and actually Reggie Thorpe played for Herkimer too. That was the JUCO team to beat. And
Herkimer turned out players. Yeah. There is no secret to that one. Yeah. They were dominant.
But I think that was what Coach Wilbur did for us, creating that mentality of a family, and that if you're not going to play the next guy up, any sort of, corny slogan that you can think of when it comes to sports, Wilbur would say that, but there was that mentality within the room that means something being at OCC.
Yeah.
Which again, when you talk about the next man up thing, junior colleges, some of them really do struggle to get a team. You get, a lot of teams where a kid will pick up the stick for the first time in the fall, and they're a starting midi by the spring.
Right.
And OCC, when you're on the field, I think the best example is the Room to Smile Classic that Brandon Spillett runs at Lemoyne. Lemoyne, RIT, OCC, and Cortland. That's for the non-D1 schools in the and the central New York area, that's who you want to see.
Right.
And OCC's out there with 50 people on the sideline, especially in the fall.
70-man roster.
In the fall too, because you're still got tryouts going on. And they're right up there with RIT of 15 or I think they're 18,000 undergrads or something like that now. Cortland's always been a massive lacrosse program. Lemoyne's they can pull in just about anybody they want. They have the scholarships, and there's OCC sitting with 50 guys just ready to step on the field and do exactly what they need to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, you also got to remember, like, those other 3 programs, they're all 4-year schools.
Exactly.
We probably met each other where, all their starting lineups have played probably 2, if not 3 years together. Us at OCC, we can hang with all those teams, and we were able to still hang with all those teams, and we've been playing with each other for probably like 2 months.
Yep.
So,
all right. So the next step in your life was you graduated from OCC and you moved out to Boston, and you played Division III with UMass Boston. So what was that like, making that switch? I mean, I'm pointing at Clay right here with the with my finger, but you were saying you were short stick D middies, you're D transition, and then you show up to UMass Boston and you're in attack, and Kroy's playing midi, well, two-way midi at least. Kroy's playing two-way midi. You're playing attack. What was that switch like? And I mean, you can also pat yourself on the back and talk about the kind of the nods you got towards the end of your career too, if you want.
Well, I really got to thank Coach Lowe. He really gave us that amazing opportunity to play at UMass Boston. I mean, walking onto campus at UMass Boston, me and my brother, honestly, we never heard of them before, had no idea who they were, and the LEC Lilies conference was just like, who? Because us being from New York, we were always like, oh yeah, RIT, Cortland State, even like Brockport or St. Lawrence or something like that. We were like, oh yeah, like top 15 teams. And in fact, when it came down to after OCC, it was between UMass Boston and Nazareth, and Nazareth is always a top 25 team in the Division III level.
Past national champion. They were always making late runs.
Yeah, and so for a lot of people, when we decided to go to UMass Boston, they're like, "Who? You mean like University of Boston, right? Like the D1 program?" And we're like, no, like Division III, University of Massachusetts of Boston.
Yeah, and then you throw the UMass Dartmouth out there, and that really confuses people.
No, we say UMass, and they're like, "Oh, UMass Amherst, like you're going D1." We're like, no, relax.
Which is different than the D3 Amherst.
Yeah,
that is true too.
So if we just want to keep confusing the non-Massachusetts people listening right now.
Everybody from Massachusetts, I don't know where you got your names, but you like to just regurgitate everything, it seems like. So
and you just throw a burrow on the end of it too for fun.
No, it was really an amazing opportunity, and I played D midi at OCC, and that gave me a different perspective because actually it was weird. Like out of high school, I was top CNY probably. My senior year, I finished top 10 in points in Central New York in Section 3,
which that's a big deal.
Well, when you had lineups like Jordan Evans in there, it's really hard to compete with sometimes. So,
well, you had 75 points your senior year. Just saying.
But who's counting?
Yeah. But so it was weird. Anyways, playing at OCC as a defensive midfielder, they didn't. For some reason, it seemed like they didn't realize I played attack at some points, because I go out onto the midfield line to wait for the attackman to sub for the penalty to release or something like that, and then Gatto, I remember Coach Brimmer, he put me on there to sub for the midfield, but then obviously OCC gets the ball back before the penalty comes up, and then Gatto's like, "What's Clay doing there on the attack line?" Not realizing I play attack or something, and then Coach Brim, knowing that I played for played for FM, he was like a good attackman. We're fine. He's like, really?
But it was right after you scored a goal in transition. Gatto goes, "What is he doing?" Brimmer goes, "He had 75 points in high school. I think he's okay."
Well, and that actually brings up a good point for the either high school kids that might be listening to this, or parents that have kids that are going through that whole process. Is it doesn't really matter what you did in high school when your college coach gets you on the field.
Yeah.
The best example you can ever think of is Joel White showing up with his summer of playing for USA U19 as a short stick offensive midi, and then throwing a long stick in his hand and being like, all right, you're playing long pole midi.
Yeah.
And he's like, but
just figure it out.
and that's all it was.
And then he becomes an All-American.
And it's just crazy, but it really is. Like, it doesn't matter what sort of accolades you had in high school, how many points, against who it was. If they see you as a different role on that team, have fun.
Because Coach Wilbur, he saw us playing box all the time. He didn't even see us in high school playing midfield. So,
but the thing is, he knows too much about box, though. Because if you just take a generic coach and you find out you have a box player on the team, you're playing crease.
You're an attack man.
Yes,
you're an attack man.
But, you are standing 2 feet in front of the crease, and you are not moving. They're just going to throw the ball into you. You figure it out.
But anyways, to go back to UMass Boston, Coach Lowe was very great and very open to that aspect. He was because I guess we didn't realize this but on a recruiting trip, he actually told us that he was owned the Boston Rockhoppers or something like that?
Yeah. So we had him on our podcast a couple weeks ago. And he was one of the original founding owners of the NALL, which was, a budding professional box league. And he owned and ran 2 of the teams in that league.
By the way, Tyler, you still owe me that jersey.
I'll make sure he knows about that one.
But no, so he kind of already had that perspective, but we were kind of fooled at that one point once too, but that's a different story. But yeah, so he was very open about it, and literally, like, me and my brother, we made it very clear at our recruiting. It's like, we're coming together. Like, that's, we're not separating. So if you're, even at every call, it was always like, you call my brother next, right? Like,
we were linked in the same email, something like
that. But then, and then we told him, like, we played defense midfielder, but I played attack. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I liked, how should I put this? Defensive midfielder was a good experience. I enjoyed my time at it, but I do like to score goals.
Yep. Shoot or shoot.
Yeah, exactly. Shoot or shoot. And right in my trip, coach was just like, "Oh yeah, no, you're playing offense. Like, there's no way I'm putting you as a defensive midfielder. You're playing offense." So.
Absolutely. All right, so you just wrapped up with UMass Boston. So the next, the next thing that you guys are doing now, and it's become more significant lately, is you're playing in the ALL, so Arena Lacrosse League, which has a partnership with the NLL, which was announced right before the season. And that's kind of important because with the NLL growing, we need a place where coaches are going to be able to see you. So we know that they were paying attention to players at the LaxCon, but LaxCon is a lot of teams. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and
not as many as the Alice Trubisky, but
and
close to it, I think.
Yeah, and you also get to maybe some of the games you take a little bit off, but depends on who you're playing against. No, but why don't you talk a little bit about Kroy, what's your experience been like so far with the ALL? And for some context with that, I'll also bring up the Redhawks because you guys won the Can-Am League this past summer. You went out and played President's Cup, which is, again, has to be one of the most grueling tournaments out there.
It becomes a survival of the fittest.
Every single game on concrete floors for a week is just brutal. But
8 games, 7 days, just saying.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's the ALL been like so far, even though you're not far into the season, and what's it compare like to the competition you're seeing at President's Cup, which is pretty high level.
Yeah. I mean, so currently we're playing with the Peterborough Timbermen, coached under Joe Sullivan there, a former Minnesota Swarm head coach there, so an NLL level coaching staff, really. And the competition is really something, it's unmatched, really. It's the speed,
I mean, people say that the NLL speed is fast. This level, I'm sure the NLL is fast. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm sure this one compared to where I started with minors and Can-Am even or something like that. The speed is extremely fast. You learn on the fly a lot. Communication is top notch defensively. It's a way to prepare guys like myself and my brother here for the NLL, and that's how a lot of our players are treating it, especially with this new partnership. We are here to get ourselves noticed. We are here to make that next step into the NLL because, granted, we all know to some degree we all may not get there, but damn sure we are going to try.
Right. And do you actually feel like the NLL partnership really is weighing a little bit heavier this year? I mean, obviously just graduating college, there's the collegiate draft. Only so many people get picked on there. Only so many of them actually get a look. But next year when free agent camp rolls around, they bring in a lot more people than they draft.
Yeah, no, I mean, a buddy of ours, he went to a free agent camp, and they had, probably 30 guys try out just to make the main camp, and they only took maybe 10 guys from that camp even, if that. Yep. So the competition at this level is extremely tough, and just getting noticed by some of these coaches at the NLL is one of the hardest things to do, and I feel that the ALL putting in partnership with the NLL is a good way to do that, kind of like a feeder league, if you will, to the NLL. Like you have the NHL with the AHL, kind of the same idea, I think, with the NLL and the ALL.
Do you think American field players would have a shot in the ALLs? Because obviously that becomes a big topic every year when they show up to NLL training camps and don't realize that you should have kidney pads on. And, you get those stories every single year. Yes. But
as box players, we just lick our chops when we see new players in the locker room.
You throw that first check, and all of a sudden, like, wait, why was that soft?
Yeah.
No, but is a league like that something where somebody with some raw talent could actually come out at the end of the season as a actual box player?
Yeah, I would say so. If they're open to learn, honestly, yeah. Like I don't know how many field players I've seen and how many field players I've had the privilege of playing with that are amazing field players, but then when they get in that box, they don't like that close contact in that really confined space,
Yeah, so, they want to do things their way still.
Exactly,
what's worked for them,
exactly.
And yeah,
and then trying to make it so, I don't need to switch hands. I only have 30 seconds. This guy is right in my hands, and the window is only a foot wide. It's sometimes they can. So I've seen players that have picked it up and do really well in that situation. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but there are some players who don't. I'm just saying it's a lot of work, a lot of practice. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's many. I know a lot of Canadians in the locker room that I've heard them say themselves, wow, it's a lot. Excuse me. It's a lot easier playing field after playing box.
Yeah, and I mean, I've started noticing that too. Like, you do things very differently, and actually, I've sort of switched to the point where I'm much more of a box player at this point. I'd play field once in a while.
Yeah,
and I made a horrible mistake in a clear because I moved back to long pole. And I realized, I couldn't figure out why I made this really stupid pass. And it's because I got so used to the box clears and where everyone is and just, the way that the other team rides you going back to that people were just, nowhere where I expected them to be. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, all right, I'm not doing defense anymore. Switch to attack. It worked great. I don't even play forward in box, but all of a sudden, playing attack was easy.
Yeah, I do the same thing. So it's easy to score when there's 64 square feet of net. Yeah, I mean, after UMass Boston, we kind of looked at each other and we're just like, well, I guess our field career is done now. Just to focus on box. Don't get us wrong, we love the alumni games, but Main focus here is about box now for us.
Be those guys that show up when you're 40 with the box helmet on at the alumni games.
We're the guys that hopefully have the NLL buckets showing up to the alumni
Absolutely.
games. At that point, we hope.
All right, so let's actually talk about why you guys are here in Philly. You're at LaxCon. Let's actually, turn back over to Clay. Why are you here?
So we're actually here helping our parents promote the Haudenosaunee Wooden Stick Festival. It's it's an event that shows the traditions and honors the heritage and meaning behind the game of lacrosse itself. And attached to that, we also host a Masters lacrosse tournament called the Randy Hall Memorial Tournament, and that is played as a 5x5 box-like style, but there's no boards. There is box goals and box goalies, however, but it's 5x5, 5-on-5, just like a box game. Just there's no boards, and we use wooden sticks and a leather ball.
I was going to say, you have to bring up the ball. I was there right after last night. Yep. I stopped by, and it's cool to see. I mean, even if you're not actually playing, it's just cool to see a bunch of players out there with, wooden sticks, and all of a sudden you see the ball like laying down the ground. I'm like, oh, that's cool. that one plays a little bit different too.
Yeah.
And when you say Masters,
so I believe it's 35. That seems a little young. It's 35.
35 is very young.
We checked.
Just throwing that out there.
We checked the CLA rule book. It's 35. Okay, so 35 and up. That's what we mean by Masters.
35 and up. And do you have to play with a wooden stick?
You don't have to. We honestly prefer it because it's called the Wooden Stick Festival, and we're trying to honor the aspect of the wooden stick, the connection to the nature, which is what the Haudenosaunee really bring to it when you have a wooden stick. You don't get the same feeling. If anybody out there has talked to Alf Jocks, he'd say the same thing. You don't get the same feeling that you do with a plastic or a composite stick. You feel like a connection through the wood, through the gut, the leathers, the rawhide, the whole thing. It's just a connection and a deeper meaning to the sport when you have a wooden stick in comparison with a plastic stick.
And, I mean, when you talk about that part of the game, too, we do have to bring up the location. Right on the shore of Onondaga Lake, which is just a little bit north of city of Syracuse. I'll turn it back over to Kroy. What's the significance of having it on the shores of Onondaga?
So the Onondaga Lake is the birthplace of democracy for the Haudenosaunee. It's the birthplace of lacrosse, birthplace of Western democracy. Founding fathers came and saw the Haudenosaunee. But it's a very sacred lake for the Haudenosaunee. It's where, like we mentioned, everything kind of originated from. And the very first lacrosse game was played on the shores of Onondaga Lake about 1,000 years ago plus. It's not an exact dating science or anything like that, but yeah. And it's, like I said, it's a very sacred lake for the Haudenosaunee, for the Onondagas. And just being there, and playing that game with the wooden sticks, with the leather ball, it brings a lot of it deepens the connection to the game for everyone that sees it. I'm sure for you, Ryan, you definitely felt something, that there was something there for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I also do have to add that Onondaga Lake is going through a little bit of a rebirth right now too, because for anyone that's not familiar with it, for most of my life, that was easily regarded as the most polluted lake in the entire country, if not world.
It's the first in the country and second in the world.
Yeah, there's I actually did a whole research project on this in college, and learned about the ethyl mercury sitting at the bottom, which is pretty much the worst type of mercury. Apparently there's different types, and this one is like if you touch it you get cancer, with like not really an exaggeration. There's an entire beach of soda ash sitting over there to the chemical plants. There were native fish and things that were specific to Onondaga Lake that have since gone through extinction. There's like every single mistake that a city could make with a lake, they made with that lake. It was really everything. And I know that's a big thing that's going on right now is they are cleaning it up. It's not to the ideal standards, I think.
Well, according to our county executives, it is clean now. According to the EPA, it's still a Superfund site. So it's still a Superfund site.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of the thing is I remember when I was growing up in the area, summer days you did not want to be downwind from that lake. Yeah. And at least now at this point, the surface water, if you're in the first 20 feet of water, it's swimmable and you can do that sort of stuff. People are on their boats and that sort of thing, which at least makes events like this on the shore, like it's something where you're one step closer to really being able to sort of like reclaim this as like this is a place that actually is special and use it the way it's supposed to be used. It's not going to get all the way back there in our lifetimes, but it's closer.
Our grandmother, she had, this was not even 100 years ago, she would have, as a child, she would say that she had memories of swimming in that lake. So it's very recent still. And I mean, you gotta think, like, it may sound like it, but 100 years is not that long ago, realistically.
It's not. And when you're talking about a lake.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so there's still signs. There are signs up now that, you're not supposed to eat the fish. People say, you should be fine, but you're not supposed to eat the fish. You're not supposed to go swimming. It's still very sick. Yeah. As the Haudenosaunee put it, it's still sick, and it still needs to be healed.
Yeah. All right. Now, I do have to bring you back because we are running pretty close on time. I got to start wrapping up. Okay. So I got 5 questions that I ask all of our guests. And rather than having one of you answer one and then go to the next question for the other one, I'm going to have you do both. So we'll see who gets to go first on each and no copying.
Rock, paper, scissors for it.
All right. So start with Clay. What is something that is talked about too much in the sport of lacrosse that pulls away attention from other more important things?
Something that is,
I can see the wheels turning with Kroy, too, happily holding his microphone away.
Gets talked about too much. Probably, okay, the aspect that it's a game of war. People always talk about it. There's that aspect of the little brother of war. Natives played it and, getting prepared for battle and stuff like that. It's not like that at all. And that's what my family and my brother and I were trying to do with this festival is we're trying to teach the meaning behind it. And it's a healing game. It's a game for peace. It's a game that nations played to settle conflict amongst the people.
Yeah, it was essentially instead of war.
Yes, exactly. So you play the game hard. It is, and that's you play it to please the creator. You do it so it's not instead of you're playing it violence, you're playing it hard. But at the end of the game, once the clock runs out, and everybody I've played with, they all say like, oh yeah, I play as hard as I can on the floor, but once I'm off the floor, that's not me. I leave everything that I have, all my aggression, everything on the floor. After that, then we can go, as everybody puts it, have a beer together.
Yep. Kroy? I gotta say, he had a good answer. You gotta. Yeah. I don't know how you're gonna top that one.
I kind of got stuck with the short end here.
You're like, I think people pay too much attention to shorts. Like, too much design.
He's talking about the custom clothing. What are you talking about? I like that stuff.
I would say that what's talked about too much is just that the idea of specialized positions. I've always played
two-way. Even in college, I played two-way midfield. I did face-offs even in college for a few games and stuff like that. And
hey, you started as a deep pole. Remember that too.
Yeah, you were a face-off guy the last year too when you were playing with the house team.
Yeah, I've done it all. I'm an emergency goalie, as my friends say. Too, back
fourth
home.
string goalie.
Well, and actually, really quick, thinking of last night, who was the one that played with somebody else's stick?
Oh, that was me.
That was Clay.
So Clay just raised his hand. I just have to do a little side note on that one. That
was an accident. Okay,
there's a loose ball along the boards. There's a lot of pushing and shoving happens, and everybody's stick wound up on the ground. There wasn't like throwing gloves or anything, but sticks got checked out of hands, and you did the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life, which is you just picked up the stick with the ball and ran up the floor, and the guy was just standing there like trying to tell the ref that you took his stick, and the ref's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was okay because I actually knew the guy that I took his stick from, so it was okay at the end of it. But we had a good laugh afterwards. But
all right. So that was a nice little side path. But yeah. continue, Troy.
Specialized positions. So the aspect of short stick D midfielders, attack offensive midfielders, LSMs, Fogos. I'm gonna say defense and attack. You guys are safer right now. But
our goalie's too specialized.
Goalies are their own breed.
Goalies are something else on their own. I love you guys though. Don't say anything bad. I love you guys. You make
our best friend's a goalie, so
and they'll say the same thing too. They're like, just let me do my thing. Come
on. But I think that we need to get away from that specialized. Go back to like the 80s and 90s where we had the Gate brothers going both ways, offense, defense. You had them running, doing full field clears behind the backs from the restraining box, anything like that. Be more
restraining
creative.
Box to the crease.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Tom Marichek did it. It looked awesome.
that was Paul Gate, just so you know.
Sorry. Tom Marichek scored it then, right? So I knew he was involved somehow.
Yeah, pretty sure Marichek caught that pass.
Yeah. Either way, just that we need to. I think we need to get away from that specialized position and just have it be. You have midfielders. That's what I did in college, and as much as I at times hated the running, I honestly think it made me a better overall player.
I think there's probably some coaches that are sitting here either in their car listening to this or looking at their phone just screaming to themselves like, be an athlete, yes. All right, so now I'm going to flip it. What is something that does not get enough attention?
Does not get enough attention. Probably I would say actually African American athletes in the game of lacrosse. I am finishing up school at Syracuse University, and I'm an anthropology major, so studying cultures, studying people, that's kind of my thing. And I've I've noticed that there are very few African American athletes within lacrosse in general, and I don't know why that is. Some of my greatest friends from high school, college, Torts calling you out, they African Americans, and they're some of the best players that I've played with. I've never been happier with some of those guys for sure. So I would say, yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, we could do an entire show just on that. In fact, I almost did with Artie West, but she also brought up the other good point, which is the drastically overlooked segment is also women's players that don't get the sort of attention that they truly deserve. Oh yeah, that's a different story too. Yeah. All right, Clay.
See, I thought I had an answer, but then you took my answer actually. So
it's a twin thing.
Yeah. That doesn't get enough attention. Probably, and this is gonna sound me being my major, but probably like being in the weight room and the nutrition and the actual like having to lift weights and that kind of aspect.
It takes work to be good. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, I would
It's
definitely.
not just playing.
Believe it or not, we actually did have to condition. Coach Jeff Ebbs from UMass would love to hear this right now. But no, like being an exercise health science major, like I still, even now in the professional, especially now in the professional, like semi-professional and in the ALL, if you want to get to that next level in the professionals, there is no certified strength coach that a team has. It's all on your own. And if you want to get to that next level, even after a D1 strength coach, you want to stay in shape, you want to get stronger, get faster, you have to know you have to do it yourself.
Yep.
And there's some players who don't do that as well as others. And when you're on the floor with them, you can tell the difference. And honestly, like when me and my brother got back from college, being in shape, to the Onondaga Redhawks, you could definitely tell the players that were conditioning and the players that weren't conditioned.
Yeah, and I mean that's something where it's becoming a bigger deal in high schools. I don't know if when you guys were at FM, if you had a strength and lifting program or anything like that, but
for
there's
football we did.
Yeah, there's nothing like that in my high school. Yeah, there's the football players. They had like weight limits for positions mapped out, and those guys went into powerlifting or wrestling in the off season. But like lacrosse was like no.
Yeah, we were very tiny in high school. What were you, like $1.60 soaking wet in high school? Maybe.
Yeah, and I mean that's just it is such a fundamental part of the game, and I know people have talked about in my high school I was 1 or 2 years behind Mikey Powell, who was, I didn't go to his high school, I didn't play at Carthage, but he would play our school. And, we had a defender that wound up going to Canisius who held him to like a goal and an assist or something like that. It was nothing crazy. I mean, he was still Mikey Powell, but he played pretty well and was a good player. But then he shows up to Syracuse, you get in that formal program, and you see stuff like that, like the jump from your high school to freshman year of college when you actually get into that sort of thing. For some people, if they're so underdeveloped, like the gains they get right away can make such an impact in what you can do, and all of a sudden, like his quickness, his power, all that stuff is just immediately obvious.
And, I funny how you mentioned that your story, because I actually, out of high school, like my junior year, I would say I know Jojo Marasco like fairly well, and I was getting concerned because like I wasn't getting the looks I wanted to get out of high school, and so on Facebook I messaged Jojo Marasco and I'm like, what can I do to get at a Syracuse caliber level? And he said like, once you get like just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing fine. You're doing what you need to get noticed. But you have once you get into that level, you'll see like the formal, and then your skills will start getting better. Your speed will start picking up, and I 100% agree with what Jojo Marasco said. Like
absolutely.
Once you get into that college system, like things just start spinning.
Yep. All right, next question. Yeah, Clay, I'll start with you. You are given $50 million you have to spend on lacrosse somehow. How do you do it?
$50 million to do something with lacrosse. I would probably. I think you already know my answer, don't you? Maybe. Probably like.
Rooms for everyone.
I would probably like try starting a youth organization. Honestly, me and my brother, still grassroots, very, very minor, nothing serious at the moment. But me and my brother are trying to start a youth program. And if I guess $50 million or winning the lottery, that would help a lot trying to start an organization in that sense. So.
Yeah, that would get you some resources. All right. Kroy, how about you?
Maybe it's just the fan in me, but I would probably attempt to try to start an NLL program, actually. Maybe that's just been... I don't know why. That's
Syracuse Smash 2.0.
No, I'm not going anywhere near those Syracuse fans. They are rabid.
Fair weather fans.
But as a kid, me and my friend, we've always dreamt of, starting a professional team in some city for whatever reason, and I know that'd probably be
go to Portland. Let's get realistic.
Lumberjacks, yes.
Bring the
Lumberjacks back.
Yeah.
Bring the Lumberjacks back.
He was a big fan of those plaid jerseys.
But something about that, and like I said, maybe it's just a little kid in me or something. But yeah, probably start an NLL team.
I like it. All right, so next one is, what is something funny from this past week, lacrosse related or not? It can be a stupid video you've seen, could just be, Clay walking into a wall, anything like that.
I swear to God, if you say, was it Baby Shark, I'm going to be upset.
Dang, you stole my idea. No, I'm kidding.
I might have to loop in Baby Shark under.
Probably funny. So this like a couple days ago, myself, my brother, and our friend Brandon Miller, we were out shooting, and like I said, I occasionally like to hop in net, and I have my own box set of goalie pads, and I forget my cup. Wasn't the smartest plan. You guys can probably tell where this is going.
Yep.
I used something else to protect myself.
Yeah, I used an arm pad.
Yeah,
I found myself there.
Something, and my brother, takes a bounce shot.
We all said no bounce shots, but of course I had to take at least one bounce shot.
He had to get one bounce shot.
You're not a brother if you don't.
Exactly.
Had to get one bounce shot, shoots, hits me, and I go down for a little bit, get back up, feeling pretty good, get back in the net, just because like every goalie, they're a little loose in the head sometimes, and my buddy Brandon, he takes a couple warm-up shots, and the third warm-up shot hits me there again.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you just see him, he's like, all right, just going to shoot at you, get you right back in the groove.
That is when you are done for the day.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I soaked it and take another couple minutes off and then hop back in. Like I said, the goalies are a little bit crazy, so I'm up there a little bit.
All right, Clay.
Okay. So during our ALL, a first home opener, we had a practice early before our game, and one of our guys, Banger, he comes in and he doesn't have the right helmet on. We all have to wear black helmets, and so he doesn't have his helmet ready because his cage. He plays for the Ottawa Axemen, Capital Region Axemen. So he has his helmet for the Ottawa Axemen, but he needs his black helmet. So his cage doesn't want to come off his helmet. So he grabs another helmet and doesn't. And it doesn't fit him well. Like if he tries running, it literally just like covers his eyes and he goes blind trying to catch it. So we were doing a 2-on-2, and for some reason this guy he just wants to go like all out during practice, like 2 hours before our game. So then I'm D'ing up on him. I drive him down to the boards. All of a sudden I see him just dive into the middle of the air with the ball and tries to score on our goalie. And he just rams into our goalie and hits his head in the pipe. His helmet goes flying. I hit him in the face. And you just see him laying there just laughing the entire time. Everybody on the entire bench is just like, what the hell, Banger?
I like it. All right. Last one is, this will be easy for you guys because I'm pretty sure that you watch every lacrosse game that exists anyway. But what is the last lacrosse game you watched purely for fun?
I'm answering this first. Go for it. All right. So the last game,
because you watch every game together. So
yeah,
whoever gets the first one.
So the last game I watched purely for fun, me and my brother and our best friend Brandon Miller, we went over to his house and we saw the Seals. I think it was their first game, right? They played.
Oh, the Seals Mammoth.
Yeah, that was it. Wasn't a very good game. If I don't remember correctly. It was an okay game.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that was probably the most recent game I've seen for fun. And we just we have a good time. We
just sit back and watch and
exactly. We just watch, and then Brandon being a goalie, he's just like, oh yeah, watch, the goalie's gonna get scored on here. Next shot, he gets scored on right where he calls it. So it's always kind of fun. And then we always say like, oh, who's the first? With the Seals, it was like who was the first person that was going to score for franchise history with the Seals, and then we'd call out like Dan Dawson, Austin Stotts, and then our buddy Brandon's like, watch is going to be like someone who's like never been heard from or from exactly, and then it's just like he wasn't like random, but it was just like someone you don't expect to score.
Well, I said Brody Merrill was going to be on the play somehow, and he got the assist, so I was right.
All right, you get to finish it up. What's the last game you watched for fun?
Last game I watched for fun.
That wasn't the Seals Mammoth.
We both my brother and I, a couple family friends and my parents, we went to the Bandits Toronto Rock game.
Oh, yeah.
That was not a very good game, but it was fun nonetheless. Being in Banditland, just being in that atmosphere, surrounded by 11,000 plus, just it's always fun. Hearing Sweeney, going defense, all that good stuff. It's if you haven't been to a Buffalo Bandits game, I suggest going.
You have to do it.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. Like that's a must.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the best tweets I saw recently was from the Nighthawks when they were playing the Bandits, and one of the Nighthawks players got a penalty, and all they wrote was "the spelling bee has started." Which, if you haven't actually been to a Bandits game or know about it, it's the unity and the chants in that arena are just phenomenal. Yes. I mean, it's for players, it's for the actual team doing stuff, it's for penalties. It's just, I love it.
And Bill O'Brien, he also said he played for the Bandits, and he said, I'd rather play with the Bandits than against the Bandits, mainly because of Banditland.
Oh yeah, I mean, you never want to be a visiting fan or visiting fan, especially
oh my God.
in any Buffalo.
If you're a Nighthawks fan, like
yeah, you don't want to be a visiting fan in Buffalo just in general. It's not fun. Whether it's Sabres, Bandits, Bills, Bills, you might get a win, but you're not gonna have fun. All right. Well, that's enough for today. We went way over the time we're supposed to, but I mean, to be fair, you had double the time. I mean, let's be serious. Yeah. No, but I think great conversation. Hope you guys enjoy LaxCon. You do a good job, spreading what you're trying to do with Indigenous Values. Get people interested in the tournament, Wooden Stick Festival, because I agree, more people need to just constantly be exposed to that part of a game. As much as it keeps growing around the country, around the world, that's what makes lacrosse different from everything else.
Yes, I mean, you can't date, you can date the sports back, but to the rich history and traditions that go back to the sport, you can't put that with football or basketball.
No. So, keep up the good work. Good luck with the rest of your ALL season. And I will hopefully see you guys in a box somewhere soon as well. Who knows? Maybe it might be Laz and I, but we'll see where it goes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right. And that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening into this episode. I hope you find everything interesting with Clay and Kroy. Make sure to look them up on all the various social media channels. They have Indigenous Values is one place to check, but also make sure you look up Spirit Twins Lacrosse, where they're doing all sorts of camps and clinics and other things as their own company now. So they've launched that just recently. So make sure you check them out. And as always, go to laxallstars.com for all of our newest content. Make sure you check things out, and I will catch you next time.